What you are about to hear is not just another backstage fight or a scripted moment that gets forgotten by next week. This is the moment CM Punk crossed a line so far and so deliberately that there is absolutely no coming back from it. And by the time you hear every detail of what happened on Raw and what happened after the cameras stopped rolling, your jaw is going to be on the floor. CM Punk powerbombed Roman Reigns through the announcer's table on live television, and then when the show went off the air and millions of people at home thought it was over, Punk walked straight over to Roman's most devoted fans in the arena and mocked them to their faces. This was not an accident. This was not a brawl that spiraled out of control in the heat of the moment. This was a calculated, premeditated assault that Punk engineered from the very first second he stepped through that curtain. And the fact that Adam Pearce and a small army of WWE officials tried repeatedly to stop it and completely failed makes the whole situation even more explosive. Welcome to Fame Wire, and here is the full story of the most personal and destructive attack in modern WWE history. The main event segment on Monday Night Raw was set up as Roman Reigns addressing the WWE Universe about his ongoing conflicts with multiple rivals. Roman walked out with that familiar slow arrogance, stepped into the center of the ring, and demanded acknowledgement from a crowd that has been growing increasingly tired of his tribal chief persona. He grabbed the microphone and made it very clear he was not there to win anyone over. He told the audience he did not care if they liked him, he did not care if they respected him, but they would acknowledge him as the most dominant force the company had ever seen. He called himself the tribal chief, the head of the table, and insisted that despite everyone trying to tear down what he had built, he was still standing. That promo was designed to generate heat, and it worked, but not in the way Roman may have anticipated, because before he could continue, CM Punk's music exploded through the arena and the crowd erupted immediately. Everyone in that building knew this confrontation had been building for weeks. Every encounter between these two had been escalating in intensity and personal animosity, and the crowd could sense that tonight was going to be different. But what nobody expected was that Punk was not coming out for a microphone exchange or a stare-down. He sprinted to the ring with a purpose and an urgency that made it immediately clear he was not interested in talking. Punk hit the ring and went straight after Roman with strikes that were not the typical choreographed wrestling moves you see in a standard match. These were punches and kicks delivered with a level of intensity that blurred the line between professional performance and genuine aggression. Punk was targeting Roman's head specifically, throwing punches to the face and forearms to the temple, fighting in a way that suggested this situation was deeply personal rather than purely professional. Roman initially tried to respond the way he always does, going for his power-based offense and attempting to establish control through sheer physical dominance. But Punk was fighting with such relentless aggression that Roman could not find his footing. Roman eventually connected with a clothesline that sent Punk to the mat, and for just a moment, it looked like the tribal chief was going to reassert himself and regain control of the situation the way he always seems to. Roman began setting up his typical comeback sequence, and the crowd, despite their mixed loyalties, started playing along the way they always do when Roman builds toward his signature offense. But Punk countered by grabbing Roman's arm and transitioning directly into a Kimura lock attempt, and the crowd completely lost it, because using a submission hold in this context sent a very specific message. Punk was not trying to win a wrestling match. He was trying to injure Roman Reigns, trying to make him tap out and submit in a situation where there was not even an official contest happening, which made the whole thing feel frighteningly real. Roman managed to force Punk into the corner to break the hold, and at that point the tribal chief made a decision that told you everything about his mindset. Instead of continuing to fight, Roman tried to leave the ring. He wanted to step back, regroup, and approach the confrontation on his own terms, rather than continuing to engage in the kind of chaotic brawl that Punk had clearly come prepared for. But Punk was not going to allow Roman that luxury. He grabbed Roman by the hair and dragged him back before throwing him over the top rope to the outside, and the moment both men hit the ringside area, everyone in the arena knew things were about to get significantly worse. Adam Pearce, Raw's general manager, appeared almost immediately with multiple officials in tow, all of them trying desperately to get between Punk and Roman. Pierce was screaming at both men, threatening suspensions, threatening fines, reportedly even threatening termination if they did not stop. But Punk treated every single one of those officials like they were obstacles rather than authority figures. He shoved them aside one by one and kept going after Roman. At one point, Punk grabbed a microphone in the middle of the chaos and pointed directly at Roman, telling him that if he wanted acknowledgement, he should acknowledge what was coming next, right before delivering a knee strike that sent Roman crashing into the barricade. The crowd was completely unhinged at this point because what they were watching did not feel like entertainment. It felt like a genuine breakdown of order inside a professional wrestling environment. As officials continued scrambling to restore some sense of control, Punk created enough separation by shoving multiple people away simultaneously, and then he grabbed Roman and positioned him for the go to sleep. The crowd's reaction was immediate and deafening because everyone understood what the GTS in this specific context actually meant. This was not a finishing move being used to end a championship match. This was a statement. Punk was telling Roman and telling the entire WWE universe that he did not need a scheduled contest or a referee or a sanctioned environment to defeat the tribal chief. He could do it anywhere, at any time, on his own terms. Punk lifted Roman and drove his knee directly into Roman's face with full force. The GTS connected cleanly, and Roman collapsed to the ground and stopped moving. The move did not look like the protected version that performers sometimes use in standard work matches. It looked stiff and deliberate, and Roman's immediate stillness on the ground only added to the sense that something real and serious had just happened. Officials surrounded Roman at once to check on him, while other officials moved toward Punk, but Punk broke free again because he was not finished. The GTS had always been the setup for something else, something he had planned before he even walked through that curtain. Punk moved everyone away from Roman and dragged him toward the announcer's table. The commentary team evacuated the moment they saw where this was heading, and the crowd rose to their feet in anticipation of what was about to happen. Punk positioned Roman on top of the announcer's table and climbed up with him, and for one brief moment Roman tried to fight back, throwing punches at Punk's head and shifting his weight trying to break free, but Punk had total control of the situation and he used it. He lifted Roman into a powerbomb position and drove him straight down through the announcer's table with so much force that the table did not just break, it exploded. Roman's body hit the concrete floor beneath the wreckage and he immediately grabbed his back, and everything about that reaction suggested the impact was legitimate and genuinely painful. The announcer's table is reinforced to support all the technical equipment that sits on top of it, which means it does not collapse easily, and when it does collapse, the person going through it absorbs a tremendous amount of physical punishment. Medical personnel rushed to Roman's side within seconds, while Punk stood over him, staring down at the tribal chief with an expression that looked like equal parts hatred and satisfaction. Raw's broadcast time ended right there, with the visual of Roman Reigns laying in the wreckage of the announcer's table, surrounded by medical staff, while CM Punk stood over him, having just delivered what many are calling the most brutal and calculated assault in the history of the program. But according to reports from fans who were in the building that night, and from coverage by the WWE newsroom, what happened after the cameras went dark was even more provocative than anything that aired on television. Punk walked directly over to the section of the arena where Roman's most devoted fans were seated. These are the people who bring acknowledge me signs to every show, who chant for Roman regardless of how he is being presented, who have invested genuine emotional energy into supporting the tribal chief through every chapter of his story. And Punk mocked them. Reportedly, he mimicked Roman's signature acknowledge me gesture in an exaggerated way designed to ridicule both the gesture and everyone who has ever responded to it with sincerity. He pointed at Roman's broken body in the wreckage of the table and told those fans that this was their tribal chief, that he had just been completely destroyed, and asked them if they wanted to acknowledge that. Some of Roman's fans responded by booing. Some were too stunned to react at all. A few tried to confront Punk verbally from behind the barricade, and Punk laughed at all of it making it absolutely clear that destroying Roman physically was never going to be enough on its own. Punk wanted to take something from Roman that goes beyond physical punishment. He wanted to dismantle the emotional connection between Roman Reigns and the people who believe in him. The implications of this segment stretch across every major storyline WWE is currently building toward. For Roman Reigns, this is the most exposed and vulnerable he has looked in years. The man who demands acknowledgement just got hit with his opponent's finishing move and then powerbombed through a reinforced table by someone who refuses to acknowledge him in any context. And the image of Roman laying in that wreckage, surrounded by medical staff, is the exact opposite of the image the tribal chief has spent years carefully constructing. The aura of dominance that Roman has built his entire recent identity around has been visibly cracked, and that matters enormously in a world where perception is everything. For Punk, this segment positions him as the one performer on the entire roster who is willing to go further than anyone else to achieve his objective. He does not care about rules, he does not care about management authority, and he does not care about the professional or personal consequences of his actions. He is operating with a singular focus, and that singular focus is the complete and total demolition of everything Roman Reigns represents. For WWE management, specifically Adam Pearce, this was a deeply uncomfortable night. Pearce appeared completely powerless throughout the entire sequence, unable to protect one of the company's most valuable performers despite multiple attempts and multiple officials at his disposal. That raises a very uncomfortable question about whether WWE's authority structure has any actual teeth, or whether stars like Punk and Roman are so commercially valuable that management is genuinely afraid to impose real consequences on either of them. And then there is the question of the final judgment, because where were Roman's allies when all of this was happening? The final judgment has been presented as Roman's support structure, the people who have his back when things go sideways. But during one of the most brutal attacks of Roman's recent career, he was completely alone. There was no Seth Rollins, no Jacob Fatu, nobody coming to the tribal chief's aid. The fact that Roman had nobody in his corner during this moment suggests the cracks in his alliances run deeper than the story has explicitly shown, and Punk may have known that going in. This may have been part of the plan all along. Wrestling social media reacted to this segment within minutes of it happening, and the response has been passionate and deeply divided in exactly the way WWE needs it to be. One side of the conversation celebrates Punk for finally delivering the kind of brutal accountability to Roman that fans feel he has deserved for years, arguing that Punk is simply treating Roman the way Roman has treated everyone around him throughout his entire reign. The other side argues that Punk crossed a professional and personal line, particularly with the post-show mocking of Roman's fans, and that whatever you think of Roman as a character, deliberately disrespecting paying audience members who have done nothing wrong is something that cannot be justified as good storytelling. The neutral observers sitting in the middle of that conversation are raising the most interesting question of all, which is whether the level of personal animosity on display in this segment reflects something real between these two performers rather than a purely fictional narrative, and that question alone has generated enormous engagement across every platform. What is not in question is where all of this is heading. A match between CM Punk and Roman Reigns is not just inevitable at this point, it is absolutely necessary. WWE has spent months building toward this through escalating confrontations, increasingly brutal attacks, and a level of personal animosity that has made this rivalry feel different from almost anything else on the current roster. But the way this specific segment was constructed, with Punk completely dominating Roman, hitting his finisher, destroying him through a table, and then mocking his supporters in the aftermath, creates a dynamic where Roman's need for revenge becomes the emotional engine driving the entire story forward. The match will almost certainly happen at Elimination Chamber or WrestleMania, and based on the tone and intensity of what went down on Raw, this cannot be a standard one-on-one contest. The history between these two demands a no disqualification environment where the violence can escalate without restriction, no count-out provisions so the fight can move anywhere in the building, and high enough stakes that the outcome carries genuine weight. Fans do not just want to see these two compete. They want to see one man prove definitively and conclusively that he is superior to the other in every possible way. The controversy around Punk's post-show behavior adds another dimension to this story that WWE will almost certainly lean into. There is a legitimate debate happening right now about whether mocking paying fans crosses a professional line that even the most committed heel performance should not cross. And the fact that people are having that debate publicly and passionately means this segment is doing exactly what WWE wants it to do. It is generating conversation, it is keeping people emotionally invested, and it is making a future match between Punk and Roman feel like something that genuinely needs to happen for reasons that go beyond championship gold or roster positioning. This is what FameWire has been covering since this story broke, and the bottom line is this. CM Punk destroyed Roman Reigns on Monday Night Raw with a go-to-sleep followed by a devastating powerbomb through the announcer's table, and then when the show ended and the cameras went dark, he walked into the crowd and mocked the tribal chief's most loyal supporters to their faces. This was not a spontaneous moment of chaos. This was a carefully planned campaign designed to do something far more damaging than winning a match. Punk is trying to humiliate Roman Reigns, dismantle his legacy, and prove that the entire Acknowledge Me empire was built on an ego that could never survive being genuinely challenged by someone with nothing to lose. Roman is broken and vulnerable in a way he has not been in years. Punk is positioned as a force that no authority figure in WWE can contain. And whatever happens next, whether it is at Elimination Chamber or on the grandest stage of them all at WrestleMania, this is only the beginning of a campaign that Punk clearly intends to see all the way through to the end. Tell FameWire in the comments where you stand on all of this. Did Punk go too far? Does Roman deserve every bit of what is coming? When do you want to see this match happen? And what stipulation does it need to feel like a real conclusion? Drop everything you are thinking below because this conversation is just getting started. And if FameWire gave you the full story on what went down, hit that like button, share this everywhere, and subscribe so you never miss a single update on the most personal and explosive rivalry in modern WWE history.